Hello and welcome to Midday Report, our latest news here on TVP World. My name is Anna Kalczyńska. The Ukraine Anti-Corruption Bureau has launched Operation Midas, a major investigation exposing a high-level criminal organization operating in the energy and defense sectors that allegedly sought to influence state-run companies, including the nuclear power operator Energoatom. Aleksandra Bulenda reports.
Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Bureau has launched a sweeping operation into the country's energy sector, one that investigators say exposes a high-level criminal organization built to manipulate state enterprises including Energoatom, the national nuclear operator. The probe, spanning 15 months and over 1,000 hours of recordings, comes as Kyiv faces renewed pressure to reform and meet EU standards on governance. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that Ukraine and the European Union are preparing a new wave of sanctions, the 20th package, aimed at cutting off Russia's war revenues from energy exports.
Together with our partners in the European Union, we are already preparing the 20th package of sanctions. We expect the content of this package to be prepared within a month, and we propose including Russian legal entities and individuals who are still making money from energy resources.
But for ordinary Ukrainians, the crisis is not just political, it is deeply personal. Massive blackouts have hit Kyiv and other regions, with heating and internet cut for hours at a time.
These outages right now are unpredictable. Thank God we have heat. However, we don't know if that's gonna last. If you compare it to the last winter, right now it's much worse. So Russia was deliberately attacking really strategically our energy infrastructure and energy production. So they are really trying to weaponize winter, weaponize cold, weaponize darkness.
Zelensky recently told the Guardian newspaper that Ukraine urgently needs 27 Patriot systems and hopes to borrow some from European allies. As winter closes in, he says no aid will ever be enough until Moscow stops its assault. In this war, even electricity has become a front line.
Members of the German AfD party will attend a BRICS Summit hosted by Russia next week. There's concern they will provide sensitive security information to Russian intelligence. While the summit focuses on future cooperation between Europe and BRICS countries, the AfD members say they are looking to deepen dialogue between Germany and Russia using, quote, every legitimate democratic means of open debate to help prevent an escalation of the conflict with Russia into NATO territory and into Germany itself. End of quote. Meanwhile, senior German politicians from the ruling Christian Democratic Union and its coalition partners stated their concerns over the meeting. They worry that the AfD members will disclose sensitive security information with the Russians, as some of the party's lawmakers are currently under investigation for receiving foreign payments. 5 drones were spotted over the Doel nuclear power plant in Belgium on Sunday evening. According to a spokesperson for the energy company Engie, operations at the plant were not impacted by the sighting. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has more on this and similar incidents plaguing Belgium.
3 major drone incursions in the last week. This is the reality for Belgium as it combats another day of drones spotted over a nuclear power plant, Doel, in the country's east. This is according to the energy giant Engie, and it comes off the back of other drone sightings here in the Benelux country. On Tuesday, drones were spotted over Zaventem International and Domestic Airport, leaving hundreds of travellers stranded and flights diverted to the Liège airport, roughly an hour's drive east. And on Monday, for a third consecutive day, drones were spotted flying over the Klein-Brogel military base in the country's north. Belgium has been scrambling, trying to find the culprit, as well as attempts to divert these drones from disrupting the country in the future. They've called on their European allies to provide expertise, such as the United Kingdom, France and Germany. On Sunday, the UK they announced that they would send in expertise as well as equipment to disrupt these drones. We heard Richard Knighton, the head of the British Armed Forces, state that this looks like hybrid warfare coming out of Russia. However, he did not specifically stipulate that this was the operations of Moscow. We heard similar rhetoric coming from the Belgian Defence Minister, Theo Franken, stating that it looks and smells like operations from the Kremlin. However, Russia has strenuously denied the allegations. We also saw on Thursday the coming together of the National Security Council in Belgium with an announcement that cabinet ministers would hopefully endorse a €50 million cash injection to thwarting these disruptive drones. Angela Scoogens from Brussels for TVP World.
The U.S. Senate has taken the first step towards ending the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. 8 Democrats broke their party's blockade to advance a compromise bill which ensures government funding through January 30th.
The motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
A breakthrough 40 days into the government shutdown. The minimum of 60 Senate votes has been reached to end the deadlock.
The agreement reinstates thousands of fired federal workers and provides back pay to more than 1 million others. It advances 3 bipartisan funding bills for agriculture and FDA, for military construction and Veterans Affairs, and for the legislative branch.
8 senators broke party ranks to pass the Republican bill, even though it leaves out the healthcare subsidies to help lower-income Americans pay for private health insurance as part of the Affordable Care Act, or ACA.
There was zero chance of dealing with the ACA issue as long as the shutdown continued. Now, I don't know, 50-50?
The U.S. government shuts down when Congress fails to reach a budget agreement. When that happens, funding for federal agencies is suspended. Many federal employees go without paychecks, while numerous institutions close or limit their operations. This year, thousands of flights have already been delayed or canceled altogether due to air traffic control staff shortages. That pressure convinced the senators to approve the bill.
That's a big win for 2 million federal employees, and added together with these other ingredients of robust appropriations bills and a guaranteed path forward to vote on fixing the ACA, that made me sign on and say, yes, we can do it.
But the longest in history, now 41-day U.S. government shutdown, is not just a matter of America's internal politics. It has delayed more than $5 billion worth of weapons exports to NATO allies, Poland, Denmark, and Croatia, according to data shared with American publication Axios. The shutdown has reportedly also affected deliveries to Ukraine. In order for the government to reopen and for the deliveries to go back on track, the proposed funding bill now has to pass the House of Representatives and be signed by the U.S. president.
Over 50 people were injured in Slovakia after 2 trains collided on Sunday. It's the second accident of this type in the past month.
Over 50 people were injured in Slovakia after 2 trains collided on the line between the capital Bratislava and Pezinok on Sunday evening. Police were alerted to the incident at 7:31 p.m. local time. According to the country's interior ministry, around 800 people were traveling on the trains at the time of the collision. Over a dozen people were taken to the hospital.
I was sitting in the 4th car, and we felt a really strong impact. I ran to the front to help patients and triage people. There were some minor injuries, like a broken leg, but I didn't see anything more serious.
The cause of the crash remains unknown. Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico has expressed concern for those injured, wishing them a rapid recovery. He has also announced an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the accident scheduled for Monday. Sunday's rail accident was the second of this type in the country in just the past month. Another collision of 2 trains took place in the eastern part of Slovakia on October 13th. 91 people were injured in that crash.
Voters in 18 municipalities across Kosovo have gone to the polls to elect their mayors in the second round of local elections, with close contests in several key areas. That's according to preliminary results from Kosovo's Central Election Commission.
This is a success for LVV. Naturally, we aimed for more. All opposition parties had united against LVV in the runoffs. Tonight, the Republic of Kosovo spoke with voice, with confidence and clarity, spoke in the name of hope, calm, and in the name of work. It spoke beyond the noise, beyond the insult, beyond the division, and the message was clear. Kosovo today requires prudence.
The UN Climate Conference, also known as COP30, kicked off in Brazil on Monday with poor attendance and world leaders showing less and less interest. Although the UN Secretary General noted that lowering global temperatures by 1.5 degrees Celsius is crucial for humanity, the latest data paints a dark picture for the fight against climate change. Since the landmark Paris Agreement was struck in 2015, global emissions of greenhouse gases have only been rising.
It's on. A 2-week marathon of talks on climate change and money has just begun in the Brazilian city of Belém, on the outskirts of the Amazon rainforest. The word adaptation is high on the agenda, which in itself is a form of admission of defeat. The world hasn't managed to stop the relentless rise in carbon dioxide emissions.
The global emissions are still rising, are still hitting records. We have almost 38 billion tons of CO2 emitted last year. Just in 1990, we had only 22 billion tons.
In fact, in the 10 years since the Paris Agreement was struck, some countries have considerably increased their emissions. China, by now the biggest polluter in the world, responsible for 1/3 of global carbon dioxide output, has increased its emissions by more than 2 billion tons, around as much as the whole European Union burns in 1 year. This has mainly been due to the consumption of fossil fuels, which not only has not abated, but has accelerated, even though the world adds record amounts of renewable capacity every year.
Investments in oil and gas are still going and really speeding up last years. So those accusations about this summit not showing any results are, of course, well argumented.
This year's summit is supposed to deliver more tangible results, with countries presenting their climate goals. But experts agree that those goals are not nearly ambitious enough.
We need more acceleration of those agreements, not only statements, not only goals, but roadmaps to decarbonize economies.
Slow climate action has its consequences. Scientists say that the goal of limiting global warming by 2 degrees Celsius, a central tenet of the Paris Agreement, may already be out of reach.
Iran is facing its worst drought in decades, with rainfall at record lows and major dams nearly empty. Meteorologists say no rainfall is expected over the next 10 days. Authorities have called on citizens to have and save water as the crisis deepens.
Iran is facing a devastating drought. The country's 5 major dams are at critical levels, with one completely empty and another at barely 8% of its capacity.
It is very serious. The country is now in its 6th year of drought. It first started with cutting water from the environment, most silenced or voiceless sector, then farmers, then industrial areas, and now the urban areas.
Many people have long sounded the alarm, with experts drawing attention to poor management by the authorities, but also pointing out what they call a wasteful lifestyle when it comes to water usage in Iran's major cities.
It's the product of decades of mismanagement, lack of foresight, and problems in planning in not only the water sector, but the other sectors that the water sector is interconnected with.
President of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, warned that if there is not enough rainfall soon, Iranians could be forced to ration their water. And if that does not help prevent a disaster, Tehran, Iran's capital city, could even face evacuation. However, experts are skeptical of this approach.
Those discussions of relocating the capital or evacuating Tehran are unfortunately slogans that can be misleading and even create a lot of fear and stress for the public who are already very confused about what they need to do.
The situation remains dire, as according to forecasts, no rainfall is expected in Iran over at least the next 10 days.
And that's all from us in this news bulletin, but please stay tuned to TVP World for more news and interesting commentaries. World News Online is coming up right after.